Welcome back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Basketball season now over on the college side, moving to the NBA playoffs, and that'll go on for the next 10 weeks or thereabouts. This guy moves from one hardwood to another down in Washington, D.C., as well as over to Nationals games and on to the frozen pond as the Capitals chase the Stanley Cup. But I think of him as a basketball aficionado. So in the aftermath and afterglow of a Villanova national championship, we welcome Dave Preston back onto the program from WTOP in D.C. He is Dav Presto out on Twitter. Too many Dave Prestons in the world, right, Dave?
Way too many. There's actually a field of 68 from what I've been told. So we even have the opening round. It's not the opening round. We call ourselves the first four of the Dave Prestons.
What seed would you be in all Dave Prestons around the universe?
Yeah. Well, first off, there's the Denver Broncos running back from the late 70s, early 80s.
Fair enough.
He started Bowling Green. I had his football card for about 10 years. He'd be your number one seed. The number two seed would be a character from my mother's soap, The Guiding Light, who was revealed to be a spy for this group called Infinity. He was shot at Mindy Lewis's first wedding.
Well, this was after Luke and Laura in General Hospital and the Ice Princess. I guess this was their answer to that, probably sometime in the mid-'80s?
Pretty much, yes.
There was a Dave Preston in morning.
Mid-'80s, yeah.
There is another Nestor Aparicio on Facebook who lives in upstate New York, like Schenectady or Poughkeepsie or someplace, and friended me, and I friended him back. And then he started, saying all sorts of outrageously dumb, stupid sports stuff on my threads, and people thought it was me. So I had to kind of, remove him from the pool. But it's not, there's another Nestor Aparicio. There's a lot of Nestor Aparicios, I think, in, Argentina and Spain. So
right.
I got to be careful with all that.
At least with this one, you got all the awesome Nestor stuff, and this guy is he got the remainder. So
I use the J.
The undesirable parts, he's the other side of the coin, so to speak.
Some people say J for jerk. I don't know, but it's actually for Joseph and not Jose. But Dave Preston here from D.C. and WTOP. Look, basketball's your thing. I think there's any doubt about that, and we went through this a couple weeks ago when the brackets came out. Obviously, the UMBC story fell into this framework for Baltimore that kind of got us all energized in a year when Maryland wasn't in and UMBC was our only entry, and a whole lot of fun. And I was actually in D.C. for both of the UMBC games. I was at the Caps game on the Friday night. I was at the Priest and Saxon show at Anthem on that Sunday night. So I watched both of those games on my mobile device at said events in D.C., But, Virginia getting the facer early, I know in your neck of the woods, that was a big story there as well. But Villanova, there's nothing to argue with the way they play the game. They were the best team this year. That's obvious.
What I think, Nestor, you look at this year's Final Four even, in the era of one and dones, you're seeing a lot of systems prevail. Even you look at Loyola, a team that needed to win its conference championship game to make the field because they weren't going to make it as an at-large team. You see the system, and you see five guys who can play different. It's not the hard, you're a one, you're a two, you're a three. Different guys can sort of amoeba to different positions and play the full floor and space. And I think that's what you saw Monday night with Villanova and even Michigan to a lesser degree. Michigan defensively was able to kind of not handcuff Villanova early, but they were able to make some plays early. They just couldn't keep them off the glass. And Villanova, when they're not scoring, they're able to get rebounds. And we saw that Monday night. It's amazing. 2 championships in 3 years for a program that was developing a reputation as one that choked opening weekend. We saw the Wildcats go from, as a 1 or a 2 seed the last few years, fall flat on their faces. Even last year, they lost to Wisconsin. Villanova was the number 1 overall seed. They didn't get out of the first weekend. Shows you kind of how crazy the tournament can be. Any given night, any given 40 minutes. We've learned that that's the nature of the beast as opposed to even a best of 3. But incredible to see a guy come off the bench and have the game he did, 31 points in 37 minutes. Dante's Inferno indeed. Michigan, a great effort. They were the hottest team from February on. But as my biggest disappointment in Monday night's national championship game was that Jim Nantz did not have one of those quote-unquote unrehearsed, spontaneous calls. He just said Villanova won the national championship. Meanwhile, the radio guy said that Michigan ran into a supernova. And I would have given you any amount of money to say that Jim Nantz would have said Supernova, or it's the year of the cat, or the Cats go wild, or something along those lines.
Or something about Philadelphia too. I mean, that's 2 championships, 2 for 2. I don't think the Flyers are going to be a problem. Dave Preston joining us here from WTOP. Dave anchors and reports all things in the D.C. area, as well as out on Twitter at DavPresto, and he's a big hoopologist as well as we get through this thing. I do want to move on because I had head coach Barry Trotz out last Thursday, and of my affinity for the Caps and where they stand in this landscape. Boy, this has been an interesting week already, right, where they go to Pittsburgh and kick the snot out of the Penguins, getting Malkin off his game to be trash-talking and cheap shot no-she late in the game as a precursor. Looks like the Caps are going to see filthy next week probably, but maybe not, right? Devils, Columbus, there's some other teams sort of in the mix there. But and then they go to St. Louis and win a game they didn't have to win on Monday night. I don't know what all of this means, and I know they're not going in as the Supernova into the playoffs next week, but they're a factor. They're hungry. They've been beaten around. Ovechkin's in the best shape he's been in. Trotz is smarter than he's been. All the players are a little bit more worn, and they've got a little bit of blood on the bricks now after losing a couple of years when they might have, shouldn't have, couldn't have, wouldn't have to Pittsburgh or the Rangers. I'm not saying this is their year. I'm just saying they're as formidable as they've ever been. That's all I'm going to say.
And I guess as we segue over from college hoops, very often it's not a school's most talented team ever that winds up winning the national championship. It's almost the same way in hockey, where it might not be the President's Trophy team that winds up winning the cup. We've seen many a President's Trophy team, not just from Washington, but all across the league, stumble sometimes even as early as the first round. The scars from Montreal I still bear from earlier this decade. What I like about this team is that they're hungry. They're very strong too up the middle. They have 4 quality centers. And when things aren't going, it's nice to have that base. And I also like, Nestor, how they shored up the blue line. They brought in Kemper. They brought in some other guys who can give them some depth. And now that you feel that has kind of solidified, Holtby, all of a sudden, that really bad February that he was experiencing, that's no longer there. Philip Grubauer has the confidence. He might not be a number 1 goaltender, but you tell him that because he's played very well down the stretch. When Holtby seemed to be lost in his own shorts, Philip Grubauer was making a lot of big plays, and there's the question of who do you go with? Do you go with Philip Grubauer or do you go with Braden Holtby in the postseason? That's definitely going to be one story.
Well, that's going to be the story, right? Because it's probably not going to be one of them, right? I mean, and we didn't even pin Trotz down on that last week, but I mean, I don't think there's anything that can be said other than we're going to go with what's there at the time because that's a luxury a lot of teams don't have, quite frankly.
Right. And unlike football where they say if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, in hockey, if you have 2 good goalies, you have 2 good goalies. Another thing about the Caps this year is just, you mentioned briefly about Ovechkin and the season he's having. He currently still leads the NHL in goals scored. If he were to hold on to this slight lead over the last couple of games of the season, he would be the oldest man to lead the league in goals since Phil Esposito back in 1975. Espo was 33 at the time. Ovi's 32 right now. Other guys who are older than Ovechkin to have led the league in goals at a certain age. Gordie Howe was 35 back in 1963. I think Maurice Richard was 32 or 33. And then some guy from like the 1930s, even before the original 6. So this isn't just a milestone season that Ovi's having where he's reached certain thresholds for goals and he just played his 1,000th career game Sunday night. But this is a late career season that you only see once every 30 or 40 years.
a renaissance year, and certainly as he put the skates on the other night, the national game on Sunday night, my wife and I were watching. She's been a little under the weather, so we've watched a lot of television, and she's watched a lot of sports over the last week or so. He's so silver now, right? Like, you look at him and you're like, wow, it feels like you go from the kid, hey, I'm going to Ray Lewis's Hall of Fame induction. It feels like 3 minutes ago, right? I'm in the locker room at 33rd Street talking to this kid out of Miami, right? So it does happen quickly, but for him, it lacks anything that smells like postseason success or coming near a cup or having a run. That sticks to him, right? And that will always stick to him and to the franchise. This is, I don't want to say last best run or whatever, but this is as good a run as any of the other runs for me, and where they are and where the other teams are and strengths and weaknesses. I think they've had better defensemen, maybe they did last year, but I think that at any point they can score a goal.
And I think you look at certain guys on this team. John Carlson is having a career year. On any cup team, on any even cup contending team, you need to have your great players having great seasons, and they're doing that. But you also need to have your maybe second or third tier guys having career years that maybe they don't ever get to again, but this is their year to have that career year. Tom Wilson has already set career highs in goals and assists, and he had set those numbers a couple of weeks ago. His growth this season and what they've done the last couple of years, turning him from a banger who was really just going to make you mad with stupid penalties to a grinder on that first line, has been pretty awesome. And you look and see how he's grown. He's had to, instead of having lower expectations, he's had to reach expectations. And this season he's answered, and he could be a difference maker, especially when you look at that first line with all attention going to be focused on Alex Ovechkin.
He is Dave Preston. He is Dav Presto out on Twitter as well as at WTOP. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Howard Bank. A relentless commitment to being the best at everything they do. Branches now throughout Baltimore and Maryland. Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're downloading that app and using that as you're gassing up. Save you some points up. Get some free fried chicken, some free Western fries, maybe even a little Kona Blend coffee to fill up your cup in the morning. My cup is Pizza John's right now down in Essex. I got to get down there, get some pizza this weekend. I am looking forward to that. I'm actually thinking about going leftover pizza to be reheated on my Magic Stone on Sunday for Masters on Sunday. So keep an eye out for the weekend. I'll probably be making you hungry out at Pizza John's. The BuyAToyota.com Audio Vault has our chat with head coach Barry Trotz. We chatted an hour and a half with the coach last Thursday night on opening day after party. The Adam Jones bomb went off in the middle of the Michael's Cafe celebration up there in Timonium. So we were having a little split-level soup, a little fried crab cake. I was working on some broccoli and some mashed potatoes. It was fantastic. And then we sat down with Coach Trotz. The BuyAToyota.com Audio Vault has that conversation, as does our WNS TV page and our Facebook Live page. So if you want to catch up with all the thoughts of head coach Trotz, you could do that. Michael's Cafe was a great, great host for us. Also, that event was brought to you by our friends at Freedmont Mortgage and, of course, Carl Delmont helping us get swabbed. Helping us help There Goes My Hero and the Bone Marrow Registry. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need the right lender. It's Freedmont Mortgage and Freedmont.com. Dave Preston is our guest from WTOP down in D.C. The other side of this thing is the basketball side. And I've spent the week chatting with folks down in Houston, Dave, because the Orioles are playing the Astros. And as much as I wanted to talk about the Astros and Altuve and Verlander and Cole and all that stuff, they're all rocket crazy there, and I don't know that anybody's Wizards crazy in D.C. or believing they're going to win, but boy, it feels like the most open tournament that there's been in a while in almost every way for every Washington, Toronto, Boston, San Antonio, whoever it would be that's going to slay the Giant, because it feels like the Cleveland Golden State thing is not a guaranteed thing. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if that's what it is again, but for now, there's more of an open belief, I think, around the league, and the Wizards may be one of the benefactors of that, right?
And the thing is, Nestor, the Eastern Conference remains Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Snow White being LeBron James, the Seven Dwarfs being the other 7 teams that make the playoffs. I don't know if John Wall is sneezy or sleepy or bad. He's definitely not bashful, but I think
just don't be dopey. That's all I'm saying. You don't want to be dopey. That's all.
That would be Nick Young, and he is no longer anywhere near us. Swaggy P's causing enough problems out west with Golden State, as we've seen. He and JaVale McGee. But what's
it's always drama. That's what I love about the NBA. That's all I know about the NBA. Nobody watches the games. They just watch the Kardashians.
Yes, exactly. The Wizards are in sort of a 3-way race for 6th place right now. So it's one of those things where some are saying you should tank and finish 7th. Maybe you'll play a banged-up Boston instead of Cleveland, where the Cavaliers are all but assured of the number 3 seed. But the way that the Wizards have been playing the last 2 months have been each game or two has been almost a season in and of itself without John Wall on the floor. And even though he's back now, he played Saturday, had 15 points and 14 assists, and it went over Charlotte. Did not play Sunday. They lost. This team needs to kind of find itself over the last couple of games to get into that playoff mindset. When they've had to do so the last couple of years, they've advanced to the second round. They've been a player in the second round of the playoffs. They took Boston to 7 games last year, and the Celtics were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. So this is not a franchise that has been completely disappointing over the last few years, but for whatever reason, this team just feels really weird, and you don't know what team you're going to get on any given night. They beat San Antonio last week, and San Antonio is pretty darn good. But then,
you feel like if that was a 7-game series, the Wizards would be hard-pressed to win 1 or 2, right?
Pardon me?
If that were a 7-game series, the Wizards would be hard-pressed to win 1 or 2 against the Spurs. I would agree with that.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, and the thing is with an NBA regular season, there are so many different factors ranging from who's on a back-to-back, who's traveling, who's on a 3 games in 4 nights thing still to this day.
This week they get Houston and Cleveland on the road, right? So, right off the bat, you're going to measure them by the end of the week one way. You'll feel differently by the weekend about them, right?
Yes, but watch them win one of these 2 games, play well in the other, and then lose at home to Atlanta on Friday. Those are our Washington Wizards this year. They are one of the few teams in the NBA with a winning record against winning and playoff contending teams, but they are the ultimate. I had a coach who said, be a thermostat instead of a thermometer. This is the ultimate thermometer team as far as their level of play almost matches their competition in such a manner as opposed to they reflect their environment and their foe as opposed to setting their own tone.
Be a thermostat, not a thermometer.
That's coach speak.
I've never heard that one. I've written that one down. I'm going to use that one. I'm going to steal that one.
Put that on the blackboard for Little League, and kids are like, Coach, what's a thermostat? Shut up.
Hold on. I'm going to Google that to find out, is that attributed to any one person? I don't know.
I don't know. It was one of those things I heard, and it's in any walk of life, and work, and friendships, and not to go off on a tangent, but it's a great mindset to have, and it's
attributed in one respect to Martin Luther King, and in the other respect to Trent Dilfer. Yeah. I'm not making that up. I got Trent Dilfer and Martin Luther King, so one or the other. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew one of them.
Somewhere I'm in the middle. I don't know. Oh, gosh.
I do like that.
Yeah, but you look at, what is John Wall? Was John Wall a thermometer, or is he a thermostat as far as a leader and a player? And he needs to be a thermostat on this team as he comes back, and he needs to set the tone that he does when he's healthy. One of the reasons why the team played so well once he went on the shelf after having knee surgery was that he was maybe 60 or 55% of John Wall before he went on IR. And hopefully they will have a healthy John Wall. Who knows, because he's still fresh from the operating table. It was just a couple months ago. And even though it might be minor surgery, anytime they carve you up, it's not minor. Anytime you can't play for 2 months, it's not a minor thing. And medicine is so fantastic in the 21st century. You can bring guys back, but there's still that sense of wonder. How good is John Wall going to be for the postseason? They need the alpha dog. They need the guy who said it's Wolf time. They need the guy who is able to take charge on both ends of the floor. If they get him, they'll make noise. If they don't, they'll make different noises in different ways.
Well, they're going to need him in about a week and a half, literally, right?
Yep.
I mean, we're not far out.
Right.
Wizards and the Caps headed to the postseason. Dave Preston joining us here from WTOP. He is Dave Presto out on Twitter. You can follow his journey there and at WTOP and WTOP.com. Baseball season started, Dave. Maybe not so much here yet, or maybe I don't know if it will or not. I know you have your own chops to keep up with down there with the Walgreens team running around, but certainly high expectations on that front. And I don't know that there's going to be a moment all year where we look at the Nationals and don't think they're going to be playing in October, right?
And when you look at the postseason disappointment from the last couple of years, it's you talk to a guy like Ryan Zimmerman, and he says, "Hey, I remember when we were losing 90, 100 games every single year, and it would get depressing in August because you knew you were out of it. Instead of a magic number, you were focused on a tragic number."
Dude, it would be depressing in March. You knew you couldn't win 85 games. It's depressing in spring training on a sunny day.
And yes, it's early, but 4 division titles in 6 years, a new manager who is quote unquote a new age analytics guy, as well as a guy who can, he's very respectful towards the veterans and isn't wanting to, rewrite the recipe. Adam Eaton has come back like a banshee, NL Player of the Week. 8 for 15 the opening weekend. Obviously, it's a 162-game season, but if he's able to be kind of that catalyst to top the order, that will soothe a lot of ills that you might have. Starting rotation has looked good, but granted, each guy's only made one start. It's still very early. There's still snow falling in some parts around here. But, this is definitely, while manager Davey Martinez has said it isn't 2018 or bust, he feels that the strength of the organization, there's a lot of young guys who he feels can be contributing major league players after this season, with guys like Daniel Murphy, who's not back yet. He's still recovering from a knee injury. Bryce Harper, Gio Gonzalez entering contract years. This is a big season for this franchise, and I was surprised they didn't try to bring in a Jake Arrieta to give them a little bit more oomph in that rotation, but this is the team that they've got. This is the 25 that they're going to try to work with. And what's great about baseball, Nestor, is it's a fantastic ride. Even bad teams you can find some fun with, not as much fun, but if you're following or covering or even rooting for a contender, it's a great way to spend your days from April to September.
I'd have more fun with the Orioles if they could hit the ball out of the infield at some point this week.
That would be nice. Hey, at least they bunt, How about that Sunday shenanigans from the Twins, who are so, bent on, shifting with a 7-run lead, and then they get upset that a guy bunts to where nobody
Molitor was always a little bit of a gamer now, I mean, cool and quiet and understated. He had the heart of an assassin. You know that.
Right, but you know what? If you don't want them to bunt where there's nobody, don't give
them the base
over the other side of the infield.
Right, fair enough. I mean, I would say that keeps them honest, but look, the unwritten rules of baseball, there's a reason they're unwritten. They're mostly stupid, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Dave, always a pleasure to visit with you. I'm sure we'll bump into each other at a Caps game here and again, and I hope that that keeps happening repeatedly throughout April, May, and into June. I'd love to have that problem. I've told everybody in my life, I'm like, I don't have anything really planned until August. My wife and I are doing a little Pearl Jam thing out in Missoula, Montana in late August. Until then, I'm like, my calendar's empty, and it's probably serendipity to some degree because I have a feeling the Caps are going to drag me somewhere. I hope they are anyway.
For the city, I really hope that the Caps are able to get to that third round because, as we've mentioned, over the last how many years, this is a city that's hungry for a champion. Yes, not only have they not had one of the big 4 major leagues win a championship. And obviously I say the big four major leagues because we know World Team Tennis, DC, the Washington Castles won 5 straight.
I knew you were going to get a plug in for them.
MLS Cups as well, but it'd just be nice to play for a championship. It'd just be nice to play for the opportunity to play for a championship. That hasn't happened since 1998, and our Washington Capitals were the team to do that.
Little piece of history. That's what he does down there in D.C. at WTOP. You can follow him at Dav Presto out on Twitter. He's my pal, Dave Preston. Always good to visit with you. We'll see you further on up the road over a great international meal within walking distance of the Capital One Center, all right?
Hey, hope to see you at a Caps game this spring.
I've been working on all sorts of cuisine in the Washington area. I'm getting to know my Washington, D.C. I spend enough time down there at concerts and games. At least I don't want to get lost anymore. So I'm finding like Korean barbecue and stuff. It's cool. I'm digging D.C. I'm also digging Baltimore because it's what I've done here for, about 50 years. The buy at Toyota.com audio vault for anything you're looking for this week, whether it's head coach Trotz. Obviously, lots and lots of stuff on the Orioles, lots of stuff on the backside of Villanova, getting you ready for the Masters this weekend as well. It's all brought to you by buyatoyota.com. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.